Hi everyone, and welcome to the Missing Link for SLPs podcast. I'm Maddie, your host, speaker, and very passionate speech-language pathology advocate. If you are new to the field of speech pathology or just want to stay fresh, this podcast is for you. Here, I will share with you my wisdom and experience of more than 23,000 hours of one-on-one skilled intervention working around the world as an in-the-trenches medical SLP. And now, as an assistant professor for an accredited CSD program, I want to help you see the big picture of what you're doing and connect those small dots of what you know and how to apply it in your practice. Those missing links, helping you be the best, most confident, and most effective SLP you can be. There's no better time than now to freshen up. You totally got this. Welcome to episode 7, where we talk about the 6 must-have skills that SLPs need for surviving COVID-19. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about more resilience techniques, strategies, mindsets, outlooks. Resilience is defined as the capacity to recover from difficulties. When I first started The Missing Link, it was meant to be a podcast for graduate students, for fresh SLPs, for those getting back into the field who wanted to make those connections between what they had learned in graduate school and how to actually apply it. I think I had gotten 3 episodes in and bundled and set for launching when COVID-19 hit. So I've had to reformat and replan all of my podcast episodes because everybody's had to shift their skill set. And so today's episode and episode 8 is going to be talking about the skills that we need to have, new skills, not the hard clinical skills, but these are the soft skills that will help us be resilient through COVID-19 and help us keep moving forward with our careers in the field of speech pathology. There's so many unknowns out there, but the one thing I do know is that the field of speech pathology is not going to go away. People are still going to need us. We are still going to have a passion for what we do. And that's why I'm changing the focus of these missing links for the next, I don't know how long, until we get through more of what humanity's going through. So launching into today's topic, 6 of the must-have skills that SLPs need for surviving are mindset or soft set skills. There's a book out there, I read it quite a few years ago, called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's an inspirational book. And it talks about how they did a study where they set 2 mice up in a maze, and the mice learned their way through the maze to find their cheese. And the cheese was their reward, and it was what kept them going and nourished them. Once the mice learned the maze, they then operated on one of the mice, this was a while ago, and they took out the portion of his brain that allows him to learn new things. And they then they then rearranged the maze that the mice had to follow to get to the cheese. Well, as you can predict, the mouse that learned the new pathways, learned to use all of his senses to climb, see, smell, find the new cheese, did indeed survive and go on and thrive because he was able to feed himself. The mouse who had the portion of his brain removed where he could not develop the neuroplasticity to find the new maze and find his way through the maze did die. In the story, he dies. I'm such a soft heart. I don't like to think of mice even dying. But to think of a mouse trying to find his way through a maze so it can survive and then becoming weaker and weaker just kind of breaks my heart. And I know there are people out there going through COVID-19 as speech pathologists, and they're just not sure how they're going to move forward in their careers because everything has shifted so much. So the next 2 episodes I am dedicating to the skills outside of the hard skill set that we learn in grad school and apply in our settings, but the soft skills that speech pathologists need to have for surviving COVID-19. 6 of the skills SLPs need. 1 is developing perspective, 2 is a positive psychology, 3 is self-reliance, 4 is resourcefulness, 5 is perseverance, and 6 is adaptability. And I have 5 great ones tomorrow as well. Developing perspective. Why is that important? Developing perspective is important. It's an important skill to develop because life is hard sometimes, and resilience is a muscle to be developed. Resilience is a choice. And if you can understand and see the big picture, see down the road, it will help you be resilient. So take a step back, zoom out. You know, when you look up a place on your Google map and you can get deep in and see the details, and then it's fun to zoom back out. Through COVID-19, I want you to practice zooming back out on your life and seeing the big picture, because we are going to get through this as a society and as a profession, as people, as families, as cohorts. One of the things that will be helpful in developing your perspective is to understand where your strengths are and where your growing edges are. There's a website called, you can find it. You do a character assessment. It takes about 10 minutes, and it's at www.viacharacter.org, and it's a wonderful website. Like I said, it takes about 10, 12 minutes. And you just answer a series of questions, and then it scores you. You have to give them your email, but other than that, it's free. And you learn, it rates your top 24 character traits. And following my husband's death, my life shattered. And so I had to pick myself up and figure out how I was going to get through everything. And this was one of the things that I did. And I took the test, and it reminded me again and reinforced where my strengths were. I also looked at the back end of the test where my weaknesses, or what I'd like to call my growing edges, were. But understand the big picture. Take and develop your perspective of who you are and where you're going, and start setting some goals. And I know this seems like a big thing for developing perspective. When my kids were little, we used to read those Where's Waldo books, and we would my little kids would crawl up on my lap, and they'd have this big book, and Where's Waldo? And oftentimes Waldo was right literally under their thumb. Where's Waldo designers must have done some research, so it was right where you weren't looking, which is right by your thumb some of the times. But looking back, developing that big perspective is so important for resilience, and a skill that we need to develop moving forward. Another skill that we definitely have to focus on is positive psychology. Neuroplasticity is the understanding that our brain is not a static organ, it's a dynamic organ, and we can rewire the way our brain thinks. The positive thoughts that we think get reinforced, and so do the negative thoughts. So changing those negative thoughts to positive thoughts. If you go on YouTube and do a search for Legend Development Center, they have a wonderful YouTube video regarding neuroplasticity and the power of positive thoughts. Be mindful of your negatives and catch those negatives. Instead of worrying about what you can't control, shift your energy to what you can control and what you can create. Train your mind to see the good in everything, because positivity is a choice. The happiness in your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Number 3, self-reliance. When I was a little kid, I guess I was one of those buckaroos that, the rest of the world went right and I would go left. My favorite thing to do was on playgrounds, I would get a run and I would climb up the slide, just my feet, sliding out from under me, but I would grab the sides and climb right up that slide. And that's kind of what self-reliance is. It's learning how to climb up that slide even though your feet are slipping. It's when you have a question, don't ask others right away, but try to find the answers yourself. You can do this. And when you become more self-reliant, you become more confident in your own skills because you realize you can do this and you've shown it to yourself. So seek out those opportunities for self-reliance. Fourth skill is resourcefulness. When I was little, another story from when I was little, I used to love to make paper airplanes, and I would be very exact with the folding, and I would fold it a certain way, and sometimes I would throw one and it would go straight and just glide beautifully and land. Other times it would just go corkscrew through the air. Resourcefulness is learning how to make those folds and make the airplane do what I wanted it to do. It's figuring things out and finding my resources and coming up with a way of doing things. And my goodness, are we ever being resourceful with all of our resources here during COVID-19? Number 5, perseverance is another skill we have to develop. Perseverance is the ability to stick with a task until we get it to the point where we want it to be. There is a quote that says, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. So this can be true with teletherapy. It's so hard in the beginning, learning an initial skill. But don't give up, because the beginning is often when it's the hardest. I know stepping out of the clinical setting and into the academic setting, oh my word, I had to learn a ton of new skills, having to do most of them with technology. And thank you to my very first voice class. You students know who you are. I kept saying, just remember me when you step into your clinical fellowship, because they saw the struggles I was having. They also saw the positive mindset that I had, and that's so important. But persevering and sticking through with the tasks to the end and having that confidence. I was talking to my my graduate students the other day, and we're working on SimuCase, and they're like, oh man, this is so hard. We had done a client named Audrey, and she was a video swallow study, and the imaging was off, so it was really hard to see some of the softer tissue landmarks. And I said, just stick with this, you guys. As graduate professors, we're teaching you, and you've got these skill sets. Number 6, adaptability. Have you ever put on a swimsuit at a hotel and you're ready to go swimming, and you're so excited about it, and you step into the water and it is like shockingly cold, and you're like, you walk in slowly. But then once you get in and you're swimming around, you realize it's not so bad, and you're actually having a lot of fun, and now the water seems actually warmer. And what has happened is the water actually hasn't gotten warmer, you have gotten warmer, and you've adapted. That is what we have got to do during this COVID-19 time. A lot of speech pathologists are being furloughed or reduced hours, and they're picking up shifts elsewhere. I know 2 of my colleagues at one of the clinics I worked at are taking duties at the front door, screening patients coming into the hospital. Adaptability is the ability to adjust. It's that mouse who was able to find the new maze, the routes through the maze, and find that cheese. We have got to be adaptable, because the world doesn't revolve around us. We've got to revolve and be in the world and adapt. So, those are 6 of the must-have skills SLPs need for surviving this COVID-19. This, and hopefully the only COVID-19 we ever have to deal with. We have to develop a perspective and see the big picture. We need to develop the habit of positive psychology. We need to understand self-reliance and search deep within ourselves, and search for the resourcefulness that we may not have had to call on before, but we've got it in there. We've got to stick through it with perseverance to the very end, and we have to learn to adapt. Tip for success. Catch one negative thought a day and turn it around with a positive. So instead of saying, I can't do that, change the phrase to, what if I, and then complete that phrase. It's a curiosity question, which oddly enough, interestingly enough, see how I did that? Oddly was kind of a negative one, and I switched it to curiosity, which is a positive trait. Curiously enough, that is something we're going to talk about in our next episode. Your quote of the week: the future belongs to the curious, the ones who are not afraid to try it, explore it, poke at it, question it, and turn it inside out. So thanks for listening to today's episode. Upcoming topics, of course, our very next episode is going to be 6 more surprising skills that you may not have thought of that a speech pathologist will need in these coming times. And another episode, episode 9, will be the 7 secret linings of this pandemic. And then the following one is the surprising opportunity we call teletherapy. So I have great plans in store. Keep tuning in. And remember, be the mouse that goes after the cheese and finds its way through the new maze. I hope today's conversation has created some aha moments for you and motivated you to become a better SLP, continuing to connect some of those missing links between what you know and how to use that knowledge. Thank you for downloading the Missing Link for SLP's podcast, and if you enjoyed the show, I'd love you to subscribe, rate it, and leave a short review. Also, please share an episode with a friend. Together we can raise awareness and help more SLPs find and connect those missing links, help them feel confident in their patient care every step of the way. Follow me on Instagram and join the Fresh SLP community on Facebook. Show notes are always available, so come learn more at freshslp.com. Let's make those connections. You got this.